I want to focus on like the colors of the sky. And actually, this is an interesting story. So because the air pollution in Korea is really, really bad, it's very rare that you see the blue sky. And even though like I don't always see the blue sky in Korea, I grew up with it, and like we understand that like the sky is supposed to be blue. So like I would paint the sky blue at any point, right? But little kids these days, apparently they often paint the sky gray because that's what they see. So I thought that was an interesting sort of like concept. So I want to focus on like different colors of the sky and like what it could eventually become and whatnot. So like now I'm trying to figure out what that sounds like in music, but like, I don't know. You got any ideas?
All right. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
This is Nicky Sohn. I don't know if you remember her from last time, but she was in my old apartment. And we had a little conversation. Now we're having a new conversation at my new place in New Jersey. So welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
What are you doing here in New York now?
Well, right now in New York, well, cheers.
Cheers, cheers, cheers.
Well, right now I'm doing this. Back on Saad's YouTube. In New York, I'm not actually doing anything specific. I thought I would visit because my semester wasn't starting yet. So I thought I'd visit and see some friends. And I'm also flying out to St. Louis pretty soon. I have a concert there, so I'm actually flying from here to St. Louis.
And before this, you were in Texas, right? Or you were on a cruise?
I was on a cruise, yeah.
It's crazy, in the middle of the winter.
Yeah, but it was super warm on the cruise because we went to Mexico. And so it was like 30 Celsius. So what is that, like 80, 90?
80, maybe
yeah,
70,
something
70,
like
80. No, more.
Definitely
80,
above
more,
80,
80
yeah.
plus, yeah. That's crazy. So you were doing that on the cruise ship.
Yeah.
And then before that, you were at Rice, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Rice University.
Yes.
Doing your DMA in
Yes.
composition.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, mostly we've been having composers on. Mostly people from my past and
Yes.
still the present. But Nicky went to Juilliard at the same time as me. And we
Yes.
graduated 2016.
16
right?
with Josh too.
With
Josh
Josh
was just
too.
here. Yeah.
Josh was just here, Josh Sardinia. And that show is already on YouTube, obviously. This show, I don't know when it's going to get posted, but right now it's like middle of January. This will probably get posted sometime in February, I'm guessing. But yeah, this is, it's kind of fun because it's an excuse to have people over.
Right.
And,
all the way to New Jersey.
And let's talk about stuff that we wouldn't normally have a chance to talk about. Because usually, whenever we see each other, it's a quick 5 minutes at a concert or
Right.
just, I got a quick question for you, Saad, or I got a quick question for you,
Right.
Nicky, and, I don't want to waste your time and let's move on to the next thing, but this, we can really talk and really, dissect some things and, and I think with Josh, we did that a little bit, which was fun.
Yeah, I watched like half of it.
Yeah. We got kind of philosophical there, but
I know.
everybody's kind of a little different about what they want to talk about.
I know, that's why I texted you. I was like thinking maybe I need to write up a script or something to be deeper about it.
No.
But of course I wasn't gonna do that.
No. That's not the way I do things. I have no idea what I'm going to talk about until we sit in the chairs, and even now I don't know what we're going to talk about.
Right.
But I mean, so if you haven't seen Nicky's our little conversation here with Nicky, I do have another one on the channel that you can check out, but I don't think it matters whether you see this one first or that one first, but do see both. But so these days, what are you working on besides being on a cruise ship, having
That
fun?
was a lot. Well, I just finished the violin concerto that's going to be performed in March by the Kinetic Ensemble. Mm-hmm. That took months to finish and write, and it was a big project. So I'm really excited about that. And I actually just started writing yesterday for the guitarist Gigi. Do you know her?
Oh,
Gigi Kim?
Yeah. I don't know her personally.
Yeah.
But she's like a big time
She's great.
guitarist. Yeah. Solo guitarist.
Yeah. So I'm writing her a 15-20 minute piece. It's going to be like a bunch of miniatures. And that's going to be premiered through TMTA convention in June.
What's TMTA?
Texas Music Teachers Association.
Okay, that's what I don't know. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm going to be going to Waco, Texas in June.
Cool.
Yeah.
I've heard of that place. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, with Texas, it has it's its own thing. I feel like, especially with music.
It's so big. Yeah.
And do you know? Well, Hillary Purrington, who was one of our classmates at Juilliard too, she wrote her guitar concerto a few years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So,
Hillary went to Rice too.
for undergrad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's an interesting connection. And Gigi went to Rice as well. Did she go to Rice's? Do they have guitar there?
No, we don't have guitar.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really for orchestral instruments.
So how did you get hooked up with her to write this piece?
So I have this side project. It's like a passion project of mine. It's called Sounding Board Project. So my best friend happens to be a guitarist. Her name is Bo Kyungbyeon. And we've been commissioning and also writing little pieces for guitarists. And we've been pairing composers to guitarists to do projects together. And Gigi was one of the guitarists that we worked with 2 summers ago. And so we got connected through that. And also she does so much new music, and she's also Korean. So
That's right. I remember maybe during COVID you had asked me about solo guitar pieces. Is that the same guitarist you're talking about? Okay.
Yes.
I just remember at that time when you asked me, I think it was like March or April 2020 maybe, or May 2020.
It was like, it might have been like March or April.
It was like pretty early on. You had called me and like, hey, do you want to write this guitar piece? I'm like, writing music right now is the last thing on my mind. I can't believe you want to write. But I remember a lot of people were treating like that first 3-4 months like a residency period, which I thought was a little strange. Like a lot of people got a lot of work done in those 3-4. I'm assuming that they did, but maybe you were one of those people. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I had all this time all of a sudden, you know, and what else was I gonna do? I watched a lot of TV, but then I also wrote a lot of music. And I used to write more for chamber or like bigger ensembles, but then all of a sudden, all these soloists would ask me to write them like a short thing so that they could work on something. So I wrote like 8-9 solo cello pieces during the COVID time. I wrote a bunch of viola solo, guitar solo. Yeah, a lot of solo stuff during that time.
Yeah, I'm just catching up now because I wrote 4 in 2022.
Okay.
Flute, viola, oboe, and why am I blanking out on the last one? Flute, viola, oboe. Oh, I remember what trumpet. Sorry,
okay.
Sam Jones, if he's watching. Yeah, trumpet.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm catching up to you finally.
Yeah, it's such a different like way of thinking when you're just writing for one instrument, you know. Especially like which one was really hard? I did one for flute, just solo flute. That was really hard for me.
Yeah, that was hard. I remember flute was the first one I did.
Yeah. Because with strings, you can sometimes get away with like writing some double stops, triple stops, and have chords. But with flute, you really can't do much unless you do like, you know, harmonics.
I also feel like with the string instruments, you're kind of used to hearing them in a solo way, more so than like a flute or clarinet or oboe. Right. You always hear like those instruments in the context of a solo within an orchestra.
Yes.
But then all of a sudden to hear them by themselves is like, whoa, it feels really empty. So yeah, I remember when I was writing the flute piece, the way that I dealt with it is I just took like the sonata in A minor by C.P. Bach.
Okay.
And it's like, if you look at it, it's like, it outlines arpeggios, like A minor, then like E major or whatever. I don't remember the chord progression, but it sounds like a chord, it sounds like a chord progression because it is.
Right.
So I just kind of like copied that form and then I did my own thing with it, and it kind of worked. I thought.
That's cool.
Yeah, but that was how I dealt with it from a musical way, and I just felt like, this is really interesting. Like, what if you just like kind of took a piece you really admire from the repertoire and just kind of take formal aspects of it rather than say like a quote from it. What if you took the form from it? You know, like literally the form. And in a way, you're kind of disguising what you're taking from, but it's also helping you in the composition process. So I've been doing a lot of that lately. I did that with my second string quartet. I took the form from this Nicola Vicentino, 1500s obscure chorus thing. Okay. I did that with that piece. I did it with a couple other pieces, and it just really works for me. Like, it gets me jump started into the process without like having to like figure out like, oh my God, what's the form going to be? Because as you know, like now it's like the form could be anything. Like we don't have sonata form anymore. We
we could just not have any form. Yeah.
But I don't like working without form.
Okay.
That's just me. I don't like working through a piece and not knowing where I'm going.
Right.
I don't know how you are, but like I need to know what the big picture is before I start filling in the notes. But I suspect you are like more, you can just kind of go from the beginning. I mean, you write so quickly, it feels like.
I'm trying to slow down actually. I'm trying to write less music and less fast. But instead of like having a set form, I kind of have to know what the piece is about. Like usually my piece is like has some sort of storytelling aspect or like some sort of like narrative thing, or like at least like I have to have the title before I write the thing. But structure wise, actually, like I did something similar in this one piece called Weather Change. Actually, I wrote that during Juilliard. There's this song that I really, really liked called Space Cowboy by Jamiroquai. Do you know that song?
No.
It's a really cool song. But I took that exact form and just like plugged in music and then made a clarinet and piano piece for it.
Okay, so you did kind of a similar thing to what I did, yeah.
But it was super fun because like you know exactly what's gonna happen. Yeah. And then you just like put in the notes.
And no one is really gonna know what you did unless you say it.
Right.
Yeah. But did you say it in the program notes?
I did.
Yeah. I think it's good to do that too.
Yeah.
Because then it gives people like an extra perspective into the piece. It's not just a bunch of notes on the page.
Right.
It means and also it tells something about yourself, about what you like and what do you like outside of the music you're writing, which is interesting. I don't know. There's just so many ways to do things nowadays that it's like there's this like infinite number of possibilities, and we just have to find ways to figure out what are our personal possibilities.
I know that's the hard part.
Right. Yeah.
To really like figure out what you're trying to do in each piece, and also like within that you have to find something new and like something different. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just had Patrick O'Malley on. I don't know if this will be up. The show will be up by the time this one is up. But the last part of our conversation, we were talking about like personal choices in our music.
Okay.
And how he like kind of figured out like what is like a Patrick O'Malley sound. Okay. And he would like figure out what these things are in between pieces.
Right.
And then like purposefully incorporate them in the next piece. Instead of like it happening in the back of your mind, he would like literally say, okay, this is like a Patrick O'Malley motive. This is like an orchestration that Patrick O'Malley uses. Like he would just kind of do that. I'm like, that's crazy. I never thought about doing anything like that. Right?
Wow. Yeah. So you would have to really like dissect everything that's going on in your piece to like understand what's like sad.
Almost like a musicologist or something.
Oh my God.
Right?
Yeah. Like this 2-6-5 chord, the way that I voiced it, that is Nicky.
But that's the kind of stuff.
Right.
I mean, I don't know how we didn't get into like super detail. He didn't give me I don't think he gave me a specific example of it, but I mean, knowing Patrick, I'm sure that it's like pretty rigorous stuff that he's doing. Because when I listen to like one piece after another, I do sense that it's him.
Right.
Like I don't feel like it's some other random composer. It's like, okay, that's a Patrick piece, that's a Patrick piece. So, and that is his goal, to make it sound like a Patrick piece, one after the other. So it's kind of interesting.
It is interesting. Yeah, actually, my piano piece was performed on a lecture recital earlier. No, actually, this is 2023. So like a few months ago. And this pianist, James Palmer, he had done like the Roman numeral analysis of my piece, and he was like presenting it like, you know, like an actual lecture. And it was so interesting because I had no idea that I was making that sort of like harmonic choices, but it was like pretty consistent within the piece. And so he was like, this is the fourth time this happens in this key.
Really?
It was so interesting because, you know, when we're writing, we don't think about that. You don't think about like the function of this one chord going that way.
But does this particular piece are the chords like literally, you know, one chord, two chord, five chord, one chord, or is it like added notes?
A lot of added notes.
And he would say also these are the added notes, these are the...
Right.
So he would go in like very deep into...
It was so cool.
Interesting.
And like he was also like pointing out like the motivic ideas that I had and how they were transforming. And I wasn't thinking about it in that detail when I was writing, but I was like, that's kind of cool.
I mean, I definitely do think about those things when I'm writing, but not for everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, of course, I think about like, okay, this can be developed into this, or like this texture is gonna come back, like, you know, rough things like that. But like really going down in like the scale degrees and Roman numeral analysis, I don't do that when I'm writing. So that was really cool.
Neither do I.
Yeah.
I had a this guy. He is a musicologist or ethnomusicologist. I'm not sure, one or the other, from France. He's Lebanese, and he's doing a thesis paper on harmony in Middle Eastern music. Okay.
Oh, cool.
Basically, that's my jam, right?
Okay.
So he finds out about my music, and he's asking me very specific questions about how I came up with the harmony in this piece and that piece, which I mean, it's very flattering, obviously, but also I kind of felt bad because I told the guy. You know, I'm really sorry, but I don't remember how I came up with these harmonies. You know, I can tell you what they are. I mean, we can sit here. I mean, the notes are right there.
Right.
We can like figure out that this is this kind of chord, this is this kind of chord, this is a passing tone, and this. But I can't. I don't really have like a scheme for how I'm doing this.
Of course, yeah.
And every piece is a little bit different. I mean, and sometimes I borrow some things from one piece to the next, but I don't have like a manual of how I'm doing any of this.
Of course not. Yeah.
And you know, that kind of, I don't know if it frustrated him, but I mean, if I were writing a paper on this and the composer is telling me this, I wouldn't be that happy about it because you know, it kind of gives off that the composer is not really being rigorous about it. But we are. It's just in a different way. It's not from a analysis point of view. It's more like we need to create this music one way or the other, and we're trying to come up with a concept here.
Right.
And you know, figuring out what the Roman numerals are is the last thing on our mind.
Yeah, I don't do that with my music.
No, neither do I. I mean, but it's interesting when people. I mean, we're getting at the point now where people are starting to take a look at what we're doing.
Right.
And you know, and this will hopefully keep continuing the older we get. And I feel like the older we get, the less we remember about the earlier pieces.
Of course, yeah.
So it's like, oh, I wonder what will happen when we're like in our 60s and they're asking about what we're writing now. It's like, I don't even know. I don't even remember I wrote that piece.
Oh my God, I know. And actually, like, you know, I write a lot of music. And whenever I'm asked to speak about the piece before the performance, I have to sometimes read my program note because I don't remember what the piece was about. And then it's like, oh, it's this. And then I have to like think about what to say in front of people. And yeah.
I did that this past summer at Tanglewood. I had this piece from 2014 as a program. I was like, I didn't ever think this piece was ever going to see the light of day. And I had to talk. They asked me like to talk. And I'm like, what do I say? You know, this is like not you usually talk at a commission or something. Right. And it's fresh and didn't really have much to say, and it didn't really come out that well either. And after I got off the stage, I was like, "What the heck was I blabbing about?" And was that helpful at all? So I totally get it. Yeah.
Yeah, cause like if it's 2014, that was what, like 8 years ago. I feel like we're also such different composers now from like 8 years ago. You know?
Oh yeah, I mean.
So hearing a piece like that, I don't know. I get really nervous when I hear a very early piece. You know?
I get really nervous. That particular instance, though, I was actually it was a weird situation because Dawn Upshaw, you know, picked the piece.
Okay.
And she coached it, and the players were fantastic. The singer there was a singer, she was amazing. And I was just happy because I wasn't involved at all. Just showed up, and it was just great to hear a piece.
That's the best.
You know, and B, I mean, it was just a great performance. And C, there were a lot of people there. It was at a nice venue in Tanglewood, so it was like, this is a dream, you know. Like I don't have to do anything. I just show up and everything's ready, and you know, obviously a lot has to happen for a situation like that to occur, but when it does happen, it's nice.
Of course, you just show up, talk a little bit, sit down, hear the piece, and then go home.
But that's like the very, very surface of what we do. It's like that's what people see, but that's not. No. That's not what the rest of that iceberg looks like.
No, not at all.
Yeah, that's the thing that people see, you know, at the show. But everything else is kind of not very romantic, I feel like, for a composer.
No. Yeah, people only see us in like nice clothes and we like go up and like talk a little bit and it's all philosophical. It's about something bigger and but no.
Yeah, I feel like it's the farthest thing from philosophy when I'm actually writing.
Yeah.
When I'm actually in the process, I feel like I'm the furthest away from the philosophical side. But I do a lot of that before I start writing. Like right now I'm writing a piece for the Imani Winds and I'm reading a lot of research about African polyrhythms.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I had this kind of idea where I don't know if this is smart to say before the piece is actually, I haven't even written a note, but my idea is like, what if you took like an African polyrhythm pattern or something and not have it like notated properly or anything.
Right.
It's more like a free notation. And they only, in one of the sects in Africa, I forget which one it's called, they only use 5 pitches. And they make this rhythm, a crazy rhythm that you can't really notate. But my idea is like, what if you took that or a rhythm that's inspired by that, and instead of those 5 pitches from the African scale, or the scale that this sect uses, because obviously I got to focus on a region. I can't just say Africa because there's a lot of stuff going on there.
Right.
Instead of using their 5 pitches, use 5 of my pitches from the Arab tradition. And then as the piece goes along, what if the rhythms become Arabic rhythms slowly over time?
That's cool.
And I don't know if the pitches would become the African
like
pitches.
Something else, yeah.
Maybe the pitches would become less less Arab Makam pitches and more the African pitch. So then you get like, sort of like this kind of thing going on over long. I don't know.
But that's like what you're thinking.
But this is all philosophical in a way. Like, and what does that even mean to do this? Like, that's another question besides the music. But when I sit there to write it, if that's what I decide to do, then I will do it.
Right.
And then it becomes like a craft thing, then a philosophical thing of, is this the right thing to do? Is this the wrong thing to do? Like, I can't think about that while I'm writing. I gotta just execute.
Right. And like things change while you're writing, like timings of events could change, and like maybe what you started with doesn't necessarily go to what you thought it would end with. So I think at some point like music just kind of takes over and you have to like respond to that. Yeah.
So with the guitar piece, you just started it, you said yesterday. Solo guitar.
Yes.
Do you have a concept?
So my little brother is a poet, a hobby poet. Yeah.
Okay.
And so he like sent me a bunch of poems that he's written. So I want to write like miniatures based on his poems. I think it's going to be super cute. And actually, like thinking about this like sort of philosophical ideas and whatnot, I have a big commission that's due when? February of next year. So it's an orchestra piece that's supposed to be about the climate change and climate crisis. And because it's such a big topic and the piece is supposed to be 20 minutes long, which I've never done. I've never written a 20-minute orchestra piece before. And so I've just been thinking about what the piece is going to be about, how the movements might be divided, or like just like bigger picture things. And I decided that I want to write. I was actually having a conversation about this with Josh yesterday at Prospect Park, and it was really nice because he had just heard these orchestra pieces before in Florida, so he had like some ideas about like orchestra and whatnot. But so I think I'm gonna divide that 20 minutes into 2 movements and write one fast and one slow movement. And so I want to focus on like the colors of the sky. And actually, this is an interesting story. So because the air pollution in Korea is really, really bad, it's very rare that you see the blue sky. And even though like I don't always see the blue sky in Korea, I grew up with it, and like we understand that like the sky is supposed to be blue. So like I would paint the sky blue at any point, right? But little kids these days, apparently they often paint the sky gray because that's what they see. So I thought that was an interesting sort of like concept. So I want to focus on like different colors of the sky and like what it could eventually become and whatnot. So like now I'm trying to figure out what that sounds like in music, but like I don't know. You got any ideas?
Color is not my thing.
What's your thing?
When I see white, I'm like, that's white. Even though people tell me, no, that's not that shade of white. That's the shade of white. So,
Right.
well, the first thing I think of is not color so much, but expectation. You know, you expect the sky to be blue.
Yes.
Instead, it's gray. So I wonder, you expect the flute to do this, but it does that instead.
Oh.
You do it that way. I mean, that's more abstract, I guess, but also color is pretty abstract. It's in the realm of the orchestra. Color, what does that mean?
Right.
So if it was me, I would try to make that. Obviously, that's the first idea, but then I would break it down. Like, what is that? What can I do more technical with that idea? So that I would just go in steps like that. But the first step is good, I think. Like because you have to address the theme somehow, right?
Yes.
But I feel like with these concerts with this kind of theme, you could go your own way. Like, it doesn't have to be directly tied.
No.
Because what does that even mean when you have an orchestra piece without voice or anything? Like, what does that even mean?
I don't know, right? Become ocean, become desert.
Well, I mean, John Luther Adams, he's got that down.
I love his music.
David Lang, he has that piece, Mountain.
Yes.
Have you heard the piece, And God Created Great Whales by Alan Hovhaness?
No.
Yeah, this is a really cool piece. I showed it to my class at Columbia.
Oh, cool.
It's a piece from the 1970s that the New York Philharmonic premiered, and it uses like these recordings of big humpback whales. And he would have the orchestra kind of melted together with the sound of the humpback whales. It's very like this shimmering, very, very supertonal piece.
Okay.
And it kind of verges on like exoticism because he's got like straight up pentatonic scales that he's using. So it's not like, I feel like today that kind of thing wouldn't be as tasteful, but back then, I'm sure it was a pretty impactful piece.
Okay.
Especially with the humpback whale recordings. Yeah, it's very interesting.
That's so cool.
So this commission, who's it for, and what's like I know it's for next year, but what's like besides the climate change, who commissioned it and how did that all come about?
So it's for the Annapolis Symphony, and I've been in the climate crisis cohort, composing Earth cohort at the Gabriela Lena Frank Academy. So through that, I got this commission, and yeah, I'm super excited, but also really scared. Like, I've never written such a big scale piece. Maybe I shouldn't say this, but I'm super excited. But yeah, I feel like the message is a lot bigger than what I usually write for, and also the length is a little, what am I gonna do? But I'll figure it out.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a good opportunity to write something longer too. I mean, you're at the point now where you have a lot of music, and it's good to push outside of your comfort zone a little bit. That's good. I mean, look, Gabriela Lena Frank, at least she's a big time composer. I've met her a couple of times, and she's very nice. What about this? Is this academy open to people, like composers anywhere to be a part of? I mean, I've heard she started it a few years ago, but I don't really know much about it, honestly, and what goes into her academy or what it is. And I don't know, maybe that's something we can talk about a little bit.
So I would say joining Gabriela Lena Frank Creative Academy of Music, GFCAM, has been actually like a life-changing experience for me. I mean, there are many reasons why like I feel that way towards the academy, and also Gabriela as a mentor. But number one thing is that, like, I mean, especially at Juilliard, I feel like as a female composer and also a Korean composer, I didn't always feel that I was in the community. Like, I looked different, I was different, and I even like when I was going to different festivals and whatnot, I didn't always feel welcome in the room, and I always felt like I was like isolated from the other composers. But Gabby is such like, she has this like idea of like embracing every voice, every people, like just everyone. And so meeting Gabby has sort of given me this like confidence that maybe I could actually be a composer. I didn't think that I could actually pursue being a composer when I was at Juilliard. I was totally not sure.
Really?
Yeah, I felt like yeah, I didn't think that my music or I was being like taken seriously. I really feel that. And I think it was because like in the room there were maybe like 3 girls, right? Like at most, I think, at any point
Yeah,
in the
you
seminar.
definitely you, Hillary, for sure.
That was the first year, yeah.
Yeah, but I always don't remember who the third was.
And then Anne.
Ah, yes.
Yes.
Undergraduate.
That
yes.
was the first year. And then the second year, it was me, Jushi. You remember her?
Yes.
Yes. And Sato.
Yes, Sato.
So it was like 3 girls.
Always 3 out of like 30 or something.
Exactly.
Yeah. It was kind of skewed. Kind of. Very skewed.
Yeah. And even all the music festivals I've been, I was usually like the only girl there. And so whenever I spoke, everyone would be like looking at me because it was so obvious that I was talking. And so I don't know, like meeting Gabby made me feel like, oh yeah, maybe I have a shot at this too. Maybe I could be accepted. Maybe I could just write whatever I wanted instead of like trying to fit in. Because I was actually talking to Josh about it yesterday, but when I was at Juilliard, I felt like I had to write in a certain style, or like I had to like do something that they would take seriously. I felt like I couldn't just like do whatever I wanted in my music. But that has been really wonderful. But also Gabby uses her compositional voice and also like her status as a composer to really better the world. I think that's what's so amazing about what she's doing. Like, for example, when she asked me to join the Composing Earth program, I had no idea what this was going to be. I knew about the climate crisis, but that wasn't like my main concern in life, you know? But she gathers all these different composers from all around the world, and we get assignments. Like, I mean, the assignments are great because like we get to read books that we would never read. We would watch documentaries, we would listen to music, and we have like discussions about it like every month.
So it would specifically address this topic.
Yes.
Like you would actually be reading articles, reading books, and things like that. Wow.
Yeah. So we're being educated.
More than just like a superficial.
No.
This is the theme, and this is you have to really understand it.
Right.
Interesting.
So it's like an actual commitment. So it's more or less like a 2-year residency, I would say, and we meet over Zoom every month. So the first year we would have these assignments, and we would read parts of the chapters of the books, or we would watch documentaries and have discussions about it. And then the second year, which was super cool, we invited a scientist who specialized in climate crisis, and he would give us lectures and also like answer any questions that we might have about the topic. So we would get like an actual numbers, and we would get all these like informations that we wouldn't normally reach out to. And so after those 2 years of residency, we get to write a piece reflecting on what we've learned, what we've experienced. And so like the Annapolis Commission is through that. So
wow, so it's like you have like all these inputs. It's not just like, all right, I got to write this piece. I got to find something to latch on to. It's like, all right, I have 2 years worth of information that I've been exposed to, and this is the result of that.
Yeah. Wow. But also like to write a piece about it, I feel like after hearing and learning about the climate crisis and like where we are right now, I feel like it's a very like overwhelming project for me, because it's been like, I feel like being in the cohort has been really meaningful, and it's shaped my life a little bit differently. I think about these things now, you know, I look at things being wasted or being wasteful, like, you know, like I feel guilty when I see things like that. And like I have conversations about it. Like even now, you know, we're having a conversation about it. And I think that's what's so empowering about what Gabby's doing, because without having joined the cohort, I would have not known any of it. We wouldn't have this conversation. So
when you do this academy for 2 years, is that the sole focus, or are there other things going on while you're in the academy? Are there other pieces being done, or because I imagine it's not just like a climate education going on and that's it in this famous composer's academy, I'm assuming, right?
So she has many different branches of the academy. So this is one branch, Composing Earth. But so she has also different cycles of writing music. And this is more like the usual composer workshop type of thing. So she opens up applications, I think, every year or maybe every other year. And you get accepted and you get to write either a chamber piece or solo piece, something like that. And it's a really, really incredible opportunity. You get to work with the people very closely. And you are invited to go to Boonville, where she is located. It's like nearby, like it's in the Bay Area-ish. It's a little
in
bit
California.
Yeah. So you go to her house and you really get to know her personally. You get to see her house and you get to work with the performers that you're working with. And then you do the workshop and then you're re-invited back for a performance. So that's like the actual academy that she does. So I was cycle 10 and she has these cycles like 3-4 times a year, I think.
Wow, that's crazy. And I'm assuming she has people helping her
Yes.
with this project. And,
but like it's her, you know?
It's her project. She's not tied to an institution or a university. She doesn't teach at a university, I'm assuming, right?
She doesn't.
So she's just doing this kind of as her project. She doesn't have to do it. She wants to do it, and it's her baby in a sense too.
And I think that's so incredible. Like this is like a full-time job, and she doesn't have to do this, you know? But she's doing it because she thinks this is going to better the world. And like composers should think about these social issues. Composers should speak about these social issues, and I think that's awesome. Yeah.
I also like I don't know much about it, but from what you're telling me, I like the idea also that a composer is taking advocacy in her own work and in general, not just the compositions, but in general, because like if you're tied to a university, I'm assuming that you would have to have this, if you want to do a project like this, it has to kind of be okayed by the institution you're involved with. You can't just like go out and do whatever you want, you know? I would assume that if I was a tenure track professor, I probably can't do this show anymore, I'm assuming, you know, or at least do it in a way where I can just speak my mind. I'm always thinking in the back of my head, I have to make sure I don't lose my real job.
Right.
And something about what Gabby is doing is, you know, she can do something without having a filter or anything.
Yes.
She can do whatever she wants. There's no one dangling anything over her, like, you have to talk about this topic next. Or she can talk about climate change. She can talk about whatever she wants, right? Or she can focus it, right? I mean, is that what I'm gleaming from this?
Yeah, I mean, it's like everything that she does really comes from her heart. And I think that's really amazing. And also, another thing that's very different about Gabby compared to other mentors that I've had in the past is that, like, she really supports you. And when I feel like I need somebody to talk to, I can reach out to her and talk about anything. And she will give you the time. And some composers are weird about giving opportunities to other people, you know, because they could do it themselves, like commissions and whatnot. But she's always willing to just give it out and give it to somebody who might need it more, who might benefit more. And I think that's just so grateful. Like, that's just so generous of her to be that way. Yeah.
And she probably knows what is a good match for someone.
Exactly.
Also, yeah. And she's aware of her own limitations of time.
Right.
Too.
And so when she picks the students or, like, you know, academy members, she wants to get to know you personally, not just musically. And I think that's really great because we don't necessarily think about what kind of person this composer may be. If we like the music, we just invite him or her, and sometimes it's not the best.
yeah
it can be interesting.
That's true. Yeah. Although I've at least for me, like over the pandemic, I didn't have really any commissions except the ones that I was finishing from before.
Right.
But the commissions I'm getting now, I'm noticing that they're really vetting me for like what I would do, like who I am, which I actually like, because also I'm vetting them too.
Right.
you know, it's not just a one-way street. So I like this. I actually like the communication before things get started. It doesn't always happen that way. You know, sometimes it's like, all right, like we just know this person because somebody else told us about this person.
Here's the contract. You write the music. Goodbye.
Like, you know, and that happens a lot. But I'm glad that at least for me, it's not happening. We're having real conversations about what is this piece. If we do the piece, what is it actually going to be?
Right.
So we both have expectations of each other, and then we move forward. You know, so hopefully that continues on. I mean, it makes sense.
I think it's so much more fulfilling when it's like a working relationship rather than, you know, here's a contract and here's a deadline. Yeah, then it's like I can do anything I want, but that's too abstract for me.
Yeah, I don't like doing whatever I want, actually.
I don't know what I want to do.
Yeah, I like having the other person. This is the way I view it. If someone wants a piece from me, that means they already have an idea in their head what they expect from me, right?
Yes.
Maybe they don't know exactly what they're going to get, but there was something they heard in a previous piece, or there is some idea that they have.
Yes.
And I want to know what it is, you know? Because then I could say, okay, I like that idea, but I could do this. Or I like this idea, but let me run this way with it. And, you know, like I had a couple of conversations recently with a couple of commissioners, and the Imani wins, I mean, that one I just mentioned, but that was one of them where the oboist, Toyin, I was talking to, she was saying she really wanted something that had something to do with the African diaspora. And I'm thinking to myself, my God, that's a big responsibility for someone that knows nothing about that music. But okay, fine. Is there something that meaningful I can contribute? And that's where I did the research and see, are there any connections that I didn't know about?
Right.
And it shows me something about myself that I didn't know about. So sometimes that could be good for a commissioner to push you in that way.
Yes.
So, I mean, I think that's healthy. I like having kind of like a project to do.
Absolutely.
Where I'm like not always coming up with everything all the time, you know? So.
Yeah, and also like on that note, I like to know what they're good at doing, you know? I don't want to write them a piece that it's not the best for them. Like some people are better at, I don't know, like I love playing fast things. I love playing double stops. I don't do this, you know? And then I want to incorporate that in the piece so that they can sound the best they can playing my piece. But, you know, when I don't know anything about them, I could write something and they're like, oh, I actually like hate doing this one thing. And
yeah, I had a situation like that happen before with the player, and we talked about it. You know, we aired it out, and it was fine. I mean, we're still friends, and everything is cool. But it was like the only time that this happened where it was like tension between us. Oh. It was very interesting. I mean, we came up with a great piece, I thought, and you know, he was happy with it. I was happy with it. People have purchased the piece afterwards, and people are performing it, and so on. So I think the result was good, but the process was interesting because I never had a situation where I had to really explain myself on what am I doing in this bar, or why am I doing this, or what's the character that you really want from me. And I'm like, wow, I'm not really thinking of these things, to be honest. I mean, I could kind of reverse engineer it a little bit for you, but you know, I don't really know how you should. I want to hear what you do with it also.
Right.
You know? So I just, looking back on it, I'm actually kind of grateful because that means that the player really, really cares about how to play the piece instead of just playing whatever and moving on to the next thing. So I think it's important to, that being said, I think it's important to not, generally speaking, don't do something that the player doesn't want. But this was a particular case where I was pushing him and he was pushing me.
Right.
And just because he's such a great player, I wanted to push him, you know? So to do something he wasn't comfortable with, it was a little bit of a different situation, I think.
Yeah, but when they ask such specific questions like, what do you mean by this note? I don't know how to answer that.
I was asked questions like this.
Yeah, and I don't know, it's an F sharp. What else do you want me to say?
Yeah, I was asked like that many times.
But then you can't just say that. So you have to like actually think about what the answer might be.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've had a situation like that too where I had to just make up answers at the spot. Because you can't just be like, I'll just play it, you know? But sometimes I want them to just play it and they hear it for themselves.
Yeah, I don't like the idea of of not spoon feeding is not the right term. That's just the term that I'm thinking of right now as I'm saying it. Like I like the idea of a player figuring out what it is to them.
Yes.
You know, rather than me saying what it is to me, because it's a two-way street. I think like I wrote it fine, but I'm not the one playing it. You know, and I don't want to be the one playing it. I want to know what you interpret it as, because maybe your interpretation is better than what I thought it was. You know, and if it's not, I'll tell you that, oh, this is not what I was thinking. But without me hearing it, like I really, like I'm not going to pretend like I can hear every note in my head, because I don't. I mean, I know what the pitches and rhythms are, but like I don't know your timbre perfectly. I don't know exactly how you're going to do this phrasing. I don't know exactly, you know, how the instruments are going to meld together in the room. Like I don't literally hear the waves in my head.
Right.
And I think people assume that we are like that, but we are not. At least I'm not. I don't know how you are.
I think it's more interesting when they bring me an interpretation and then we can work on it together, rather than like, because I'm used to hearing it in one way, a very dry way, probably, you know? And I mean, do you use MIDI?
What do you mean by do I use MIDI?
Like, do you listen to playback?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So I'm used to hearing it in one way, right? But I know that's not how it's going to sound. It's going to sound like 30 times better. But so actually with Gigi, I wrote some sketches yesterday, and because I want to hear what it actually sounds like on her guitar, her playing it, I sent her those like 4 lines of music to her. And so she's going to send me a little recording of it so that I can get a general sense of what it's going to sound like. Then I can keep working. But when they're just asking me like, what do you mean by this one note? Like, how do you want me to phrase this? I don't know. How would you do it? You are the expert on this instrument and I'm providing you information, but like I don't know. I need to
agree.
hear it.
There has to be some back and forth. And
like it has to come back to me and then I can give you answers.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that. That's a good way to do it too. And I've been doing a lot of that recently too with my solo pieces, that I write a little bit, give it to them.
Yes.
And sometimes they'd be nervous. Oh, I don't want to give you a recording that's not perfect. I'm like, just shred it. I don't care. You'll give me a better idea than whatever I'm getting in the box here in the computer.
Right.
Yeah.
I want more like the energy and like what it's gonna
especially guitar. My God, especially guitar. My God, because you're getting all those resonant frequencies from the other strings.
And I don't always know if it's possible.
Yeah.
Guitar is so, I don't know. It's hard to figure out. I always have this little picture on my screen when I'm writing a guitar piece. I have like a guitar fret picture, and then the finale file, and then I'm just like doing this the whole time. But like I don't play the guitar. I can sort of like guess, but I don't know.
remember I wrote a piece for guitar in 2012. My God, Jesus Christ, I'm old. 10 years ago. Yeah, it gets played. It doesn't really get played. It got played a few times after, but this piece I was like writing it basically in collaboration with the guitarist Tim Colobre, because I don't know what the heck I'm doing, you know, and all the like the string numbers and the fret numbers and all that stuff, and there's so much detail you have to put in a guitar part. It's just unbelievable. It's a completely different world. It's like writing for harp. It's the same thing. It's like, you know, when you write for harp, it's like you got to basically relearn how to compose.
Yes.
Because it's not like writing for the piano or the violin or the flute or any of that stuff. So.
Yeah, and guitar, it's so different depending on the performer. Because some people might be able to stretch further, some people might not be. Some people are better at doing one thing and not so good at the other thing. So yeah, I'm super excited to write this piece because I've only written for one guitarist so far in my life, Bo. Yeah. And I don't know how this is going to work with Gigi. I'm super excited. Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, that's great that you have experience writing for the guitar. I mean, that's good because I think it's good to write for instruments that people are normally not.
Yes.
I mean, my instrument that's like that is the harp. I mean, I love the harp. I mean, I can just, if I was writing harp music all the time, I would be very happy.
Wow.
I love writing for the harp.
Okay.
So, because
harpists, did you hear that?
I mean, they know. Those that know, they know that I love writing for the harp. I mean, I make a lot of mistakes, obviously, but it's because I'm trying to push what they could do, you know. And I think, guitar would be interesting down the line but I just haven't. I don't really know that many guitar players, number one, and number two, I don't have like an image of what I would do with the guitar yet. So, but one day.
You wanna write for it?
Hmm?
You wanna write for it?
I would write for it. I just don't know what I would do. It's not like with the harp. At least I know exactly what I envision that instrument could do. That's different.
Right.
But with the guitar, I still have that like, like with the harp, you have like the French Debussy thing in your head. Like I feel like I got that out of my system. Like I know how to do something different. But with the guitar, like the Spanish influence, like I can't get that sound out of my head. Like I don't know how to get out of that. Same thing with saxophone. It's like, but I feel like saxophone figured out how to just get away from sounding like a jazz instrument.
Saxophone's hard to write for. It's so loud all the time.
So loud? I don't think they can be soft too, though.
It doesn't really blend with other instruments.
Really?
I
think it does.
I don't love the saxophone so much. Yeah.
I love the saxophone.
But
beautiful instrument.
Do you know Takemitsu guitar pieces?
Like solo guitar or with ensemble?
Solo guitar.
No, I don't know.
Oh my god, those are so great. You should listen to them. Maybe that'll make you.
Does he use is he using it from a Japanese, French angle? Or?
No, actually. So I mean, he has like his own original pieces for the guitar too, but he's made all these arrangements of like popular tunes, like Beatles and Danny Boy.
Takemitsu?
Yeah. Somewhere Over the Rainbow, he has all these arrangements of these pop tunes on the guitar, and they're so innovative.
They're written out like with the Western not with tab or anything.
Yeah, it's like his own like version of it, and they're really beautiful. Yeah.
But can you recognize that those are those pop songs?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
It's like straight up like that tune,
wow.
but with like his harmonization. It's really cool.
So why did he even write? What I didn't know he was like into the Beatles and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And who was he writing? Do you remember who he was writing it for? Like, what was the reason for? I never heard about any of this before.
Yeah, I don't know who he was writing for, but he has a bunch of these, like 12, 10, a lot of them. Yeah.
Well, I guess because these guitar players, they play them and
yeah.
There's some repertoire from these special instruments that, like the trombone is another good example where like you would never hear about it in your normal composition studies unless you knew a player.
Right.
Where it's like in their world, like I'm sure like all the classical guitarists know about these Takemitsu pieces, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I think so.
Right. I mean, I'm assuming because like in the sax and trombone and harp worlds, they all know the same special pieces for their instrument, but like the composers don't know any of it.
Yeah, like Teffanel, for example. That's a big wind quintet composer, but like you don't listen to Teffanel.
I don't know who that is.
Oh, you should check them out.
But any wind quintet would know.
Teffanel is like a thing that they play.
See, like I don't know this. It's like a super embarrassing.
Imani wins. Yeah, but this piece called Equinox by Takemitsu. It's his own original guitar solo piece. It's beautiful, and it's very far from like the Spanish guitar music that you hear, and like you sort of reimagine what's possible on the guitar. Yeah. Yeah,
that makes sense. I mean, I feel like if I was ever approached and it made sense, I would have to do the research, do the whole thing, and figure out like what I could do. Because I also wouldn't want it to sound like an oud, like an Arabic oud, straight up. Because I might as well just use an oud,
Yeah.
Because the harp, it kind of is like harp, is like this, but the qanun, which is like it's kind of like a harp, but this way, you play it like that. They're different enough where you can kind of use those techniques on the harp.
Right.
But with the oud, it's like literally like the same thing, pretty much. And it's got strings over a resonating soundboard, and you finger it like this. It uses basically the same plucking way of plucking like this. It's just so similar that to like make it sound like that, it's like you might as well just pick up an oud and play that music on the oud, So I'm afraid of the guitar in that way, you know. So anyway.
And it's like one of the instruments that we never ever cover in orchestration class. Like, have you ever learned about the guitar in the orchestra? Yeah, like never.
Which is strange because orchestration nowadays, I feel like, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but the last couple of orchestration classes I've been in weren't really orchestration classes. They're like more like instrumentation classes.
When was the last time you took an orchestration class? Was it the one that we took at Juilliard?
Yeah, probably the Schaefer Mahoney's class,
Yeah.
orchestration class. I mean, it was basically an instrumentation class.
Yeah.
I mean, we did some stuff where we discussed how to blend.
Did we do that?
Some ensembles.
Oh, okay.
Some families of instruments together. But it was. I felt like it was more like even the orchestration I took before, like during my undergrad at USC. Felt like it was more like this is how a flute works. This is how a clarinet works.
This is a range.
This is the range. This is the oboe. This is this is that. But like, okay, fine. But that's not what orchestration is. Orchestration is what do these instruments sound like in the hall? And how do you actually orchestrate? Like when you have an idea, like what do you actually do with it?
Right.
And I feel like at both of these classes that I took, that was addressed, but like near the end. Like after we did all the different instruments, then okay, by the end there's like a week or two to like figure out, okay, well now we know about these instruments, how do we use them?
Right.
And even I took an advanced orchestration class, I think it was an orchestration class with Georg Haas at Columbia. It was like one of the offerings, and that was more like an analysis class. We would look at scores a lot, but never did we, and a lot of these scores were like Berg Violin Concerto or like stuff that had like more microtonal kind of things going on in it, but it wouldn't be like, all right, now we know all this stuff, like go ahead and orchestrate your own passage and we're going to hear it. Like that wasn't part of the class.
Right.
And I feel like orchestration should be, when I think of orchestration, that's what I think it should be. But, obviously there's different reasons why different teachers do it that way.
Right.
But I don't know if you agree, but this is kind of how I feel about it.
I feel like these classes, like orchestration or like what other classes are there? Like I feel like a lot of music classes are just like up to the teacher, and there isn't like a set structure that we have to go through. And I don't know, like how. I think the best way to learn orchestration is, like you said, to do it and then hear it. Right? And then compare it with other people who've done the same thing, but differently. But we did 2 readings in that orchestration class, right? At Juilliard?
Yeah, I think so.
Did you think that was helpful?
At the time, probably not.
Yeah, I didn't think so either.
I don't remember why though, but I remember not getting much out of it. I remember one in particular was really good. I think it was Alexander Lieberman's.
Yes!
I remember his. I took away from that he's a good orchestrator, but I don't remember anyone else's project.
Yes.
I don't remember my project at all. I have no recollection of it. I only remember his.
Yeah, same actually.
Really?
Alex
Okay.
and I talked about that actually.
Really?
Like in June when I was in New York.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and I don't know why that is. Anyway, I mean, I think I learned the most from orchestration when I'm like actually with a real orchestra and learning the stuff and having the recordings and sitting there with my score and seeing other people's scores that are also there at the readings. That helps a lot, I think. And just listening to a lot of recordings. I mean, when I was like in my early 20s, oh my God, I would be listening. I would sit the whole day, listen to Shostakovich, Symphony 1, all the way to 15. Just sit there the whole day.
Right.
No problem. I was no responsibility, no care in the world. I loved it, Just listen to all of them with the score. Stop when there's something I like, figure out why I like it, and just move on. And it's in the back of my brain, and that's how I did it, I think that's the way to do it.
I mean, I think the reading, this is my opinion. I don't think it was super helpful for some of us because we didn't get to choose what we were going to orchestrate. I'm pretty sure it was like some sort of like Debussy piano piece that we had to do. And Alex's is like very memorable to me too, even to this day. And we talked about it. And I think it's because like Alex took the most liberty in changing the piece. He added a bunch of like flute sort of like arpeggios on top, and like he made it very like decorative. And like everyone else, we just like took the notes and then put it in.
Yeah.
And
basically.
Yeah, and also I think we were all busy. And we were
end of the semester.
Yeah, just gotta do this thing, And I think that might have been why it wasn't like super helpful to us. But maybe it might be more interesting if we pick some sort of music that we want to orchestrate and hear what that sounds like. I don't know.
I don't know either, but I mean, what we had at Juilliard is not the norm, though, of hearing like an orchestra perform your music, even if it's an arrangement. In most classes, you don't hear anything at the end.
Right.
You're just kind of going through the Adler textbook or whatever they have, and maybe they would bring in a flute player or an oboe player or whoever to come in and demonstrate. That would be the extent of it.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is, not everybody is an orchestra composer or should be an orchestra composer. I mean, it's, we're orchestra composers, I would say, but we don't write for the orchestra all year long. And people that are even orchestra composers, like, they don't want to write for the orchestra all year long either. It's a slog.
That would be hard.
And it's not creatively, I don't think it's that creatively fulfilling, to be honest with you, to be writing one orchestra piece after another. It's hard to be like experimental or push yourself when like all you're thinking about is, I only have like less than an hour of rehearsal and I don't want to embarrass myself in front of 80 musicians and 2,000 people in the hall. And with that sort of pressure, it's hard to do anything that's like not like that's really outside yourself. So like whenever I write a new orchestra piece, I never think of it in a way like, all right, let's do something new. It's more like, okay, what did I learn from the last few pieces, and what can I do to make it like an orchestra piece? If that makes sense.
Yes.
And I hate kind of thinking that way. It's not like how a composer should think, but you have to be practical.
Yes.
In these situations, because you don't want to show up there and like not know what things are going to sound like.
Yeah, that's really scary.
And then like have to change things.
You can't change things. Yeah.
You can change some things, but then you got to redo the parts, send it to the librarian, have them reprint the parts. I had a gig in France, where I redid the whole percussion part because it just wasn't working. But they didn't reprint the part at all. So they were reading from the old percussion part instead of the part that I spent all night redoing. So we show up to the show and I'm like at the dress rehearsal and they're still playing the old part. I'm like, where's the new part? And like there was like some miscommunication that they didn't print out the new part. So it's like there's all these like variables that get introduced when you're working with so many people that to write something that you're not sure about. Like I definitely wasn't sure about this percussion part when I wrote it. I knew that going in. But I said, let's just do it. Like if it works well, it'll be great. If it doesn't, whatever, I learned. But when I tried to fix it, I couldn't even hear what the fruit of my labor was.
Right.
So it was a little frustrating at the time. I'm over it now, but at the time it was stressful.
Of course.
And it's like, to do that piece after piece. I mean, I know there are composers out there, their dream is to write for the orchestra and stuff like that, but that's not a reality. Like if that ever happens to you and you're in that position where you're writing a bunch of orchestra music, that's not the reality of what life will be like day to day. It will be very stressful all the time. Yeah, I just don't think that it's for everybody. I think everybody should try it, but it's not like, I think that some people, myself included, when I was young, I thought I want to write for orchestra, and that's the music I listened to. That's why I got into composing. But the older I got, I was like, this is not what I thought it was going to be like. If that makes sense.
I mean, I think it's a totally different thing just to like write for the orchestra. Well, like going back on the percussion thing, I feel like when I'm writing for the orchestra, I'm kind of similar in the way that I try to rely on what I've learned in the past and also like what I know is going to work. And maybe I try like one or two new things, and see what works. But when I want to actually like try something completely new and like it's okay for me to experiment and like maybe possibly make a mistake, I do it with chamber. Then it's a lot more personal, and I can make changes right there, and then it can be done. But actually, in this one music festival that I went to, I had to change the percussion part too. Like it was like the same thing. And,
percussion,
it was percussion too. Yeah, percussion 2 part. I wanted to change something, so I made the whole part again and printed it, whatever. We get to the reading session, which was going to be actually recorded, right? the percussion part didn't make it on the stand.
Oh, the same thing that happened to me.
So this guy didn't play it.
Yeah.
And this part was super exposed, super loud. That was how the piece was gonna end. It was just like bongos just going like nuts. And so we get to that section, and it's a reading session, so we read it through, and that's it, right?
Yeah.
I don't hear anything. He's just standing there. And so that was, that wasn't super nice. It just didn't work. I didn't even get to hear what I was trying to do.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing. When you were dealing with the orchestra, it's like, this is a chamber. This is an orchestra piece. This was an orchestra piece. Yeah. This is the situation you're dealt with, and you kind of have to take it as a composer because you're not affiliated with that institution. You're just a guest, really, and you're not conducting either. You're not the librarian. You're just this outside figure that usually nobody wants there.
Why? Why don't they want us there?
I don't know. Maybe there were a few bad apples in the last few decades that made it uncomfortable for them. I don't know. It could be that because I have no idea, because at least the composers I know that have been around in this situation, most are very respectful. I can't even probably count with one hand anyone having any confrontation at all.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe once or twice. I can't even remember it, to be honest. So I don't see what the problem is. Like, composers are usually very grateful to have their music performed by an orchestra. I mean, it's like, this is kind of like what we hope to happen. Yeah. So I don't know what the problem is most of the time.
I think it depends on the conductor a lot. Some conductors want you to come and talk before the reading happens or before the first rehearsal. Some conductors don't want you to say anything at all after the rehearsal. You can talk to him directly or her directly, but I think it sort of depends on who's on the podium.
Yeah. I sort of prefer not talking at all. I mean, I've talked obviously before, but I just feel like it is kind of a waste of time because I know that if I tell the conductor what the piece is about, etc., he or she will always be able to translate it better. No matter how well I said it, whatever he's going to say or she's going to say to the orchestra is going to make more sense.
That makes sense because they know how to communicate with the orchestra. We don't really know how to do that.
No, nor should we.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be responsible for everything. We have one job, I think, when it comes to the composition. It took a long time. Mm-hmm. Obviously, our job is to communicate it well, but our job is not to also communicate it in the rehearsal to all these musicians that we never met before.
That's true. Like, so many of them on the stage too, just looking at you, it's intimidating.
And we're not comfortable also in front of 80 people. No. We're not on this. The conductor is there every week, every day. Right. And he or she knows. Mm-hmm. They're destigmatized to that feeling of nervousness. But as a composer, as a human being, forget composer, as a human being, it's a lot of pressure, and then in front of a lot of people, and we don't do this every week, nor should we. So my feeling is that get together with the conductor, air it out what the piece is about, get all the confusion out of the way, do the first rehearsal, and then do the meeting again until the show, and even after the show, do another short meeting. See what can you do to improve the piece. Where are some revisions that could be good for the next round of, if it gets played again, what should we do differently next time to make it even clearer? Save all that conversation for outside the actual music rehearsal time, where thousands of dollars are being spent every minute.
That's true.
So I mean, it's a little less human for sure, but it's more practical.
It is, and more efficient. Time is money in orchestra, and like we usually have like an 8-minute piece, 10-minute piece, and the rehearsal time is maybe 15 minutes. So,
15-minute rehearsal time?
Yeah, it's so little. That's a little. It's so little. I feel like sometimes you can really get like one run through. Yeah. I guess
that could happen.
Yeah.
It's really intense, but it's the truth. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, but it's fun.
It is so fun.
I don't want to end on a note like that. It is a lot of fun.
I know, that's all I want to be doing.
I'm about to start a couple orchestra pieces, and I don't want to come in. I don't want to come with that mindset. It's exciting, you know, when you're writing an orchestra piece.
Oh my God, it's the best thing you can do as a
super
composer.
Exciting. No, it's exciting. You know, it's exciting, but you gotta be realistic. You know,
Yes.
It's like, you know, it's like having a kid. You know, it's exciting, but
it's like having a kid.
Maybe, I don't know. I haven't had a kid, obviously, but you know, it's exciting, but there are a lot of responsibilities with it, and a lot of practical stuff that you have to consider.
Right.
It's not all roses and, you know, sunshine and whatever metaphor you want to come up with.
You should think about it that way. It's a lot less than having a child.
That's true. It's a lot easier.
It's like, oh, it's
a lot easier than that. Exactly. All right. Well, with that note, thank you, Nicky, for coming by. I'm going to put some links of Nicky's music down in the description below. I'm going to put Gabriela, Lena Frank's Academy down in the description below too, because I think that's important to check out as well. So thanks so much for coming.
Thanks for having me. Bye.
Peace.